Why, hello there. Today, I'd like to talk to you about this. And what is this, you might ask? Well, this is the Evergoods CTB40, Civic Travel Bag 40. As the name suggests, it's a 40-liter travel-oriented bag manufactured by Evergoods, which is an American manufacturer of what I consider some of the very best bags in the business these days. It falls into the category of what I would refer to as like BBTB, Big Black Travel Bag. And as you can see, it's a massive kind of maximum legal carry-on size 40-liter boxy bag. Its main claim to fame is it's this huge capacity with really amazing and excellent materials, impeccable build quality, great ergonomics, and I think a very great and effective internal kind of organization and compression, or I guess like internal capacity and compression system that lets you really pack in a huge load for a bag this size. Let's start by talking about who this bag is for. As a travel-oriented bag, it is ostensibly aimed at one-bag travelers, but I would say it's aimed at one-bag travelers who are either bringing like a sling, I think almost like a sling is necessary on this with this bag, and probably another bag inside if you're like a collapsible EDC bag, because this bag is just too big to be used as an EDC bag at a destination. It's also, I think, aimed at people who are hauling gear from one point to another. And finally, I think it does well for people who are doing kind of crossover travel. So a situation where you need to bring both like urban kind of, daily city use stuff, and then also want to bring some gear for like an outdoor hike or adventure, overnight adventure, including even like a tent or something like that. Let's talk about who it's not for. Well, this bag is massive, so it's not going to be great for people who actually are a bit more minimalist one-bag travelers. So for me, I don't use this bag nearly as much as I would like to because I just don't need all this capacity and it's just too big. Like I usually would use about half to 2/3 of this capacity at most. Similarly, people with, like a smaller frame, the ergonomics in the bag are good, but like there's no getting around the fact that this is a large bag and it looks quite massive visually and physically on a person, certainly with a smaller frame. And I think the third thing, people who want to work in and out of a bag en route, like if you're doing, if you need to do some business all along the way in the airport or lounge, wherever, this bag does not have a ton of like external access. There is a laptop slot and like one other little pocket, but that's it. It's not very easy to work in and out of. There's no place to keep like a water bottle and stuff like this. This is very much like a point A to point B, like hauling type bag. So let's talk about this bag's exterior, the pocketing and ergonomics, or the strapping situation, and then get into the interior here. And I want to preface this by saying that, like as mentioned, I have not used this bag as much as I wish I could, because I simply don't need all the capacity. I have used it in a couple of crossover type trips, and I'll show you what that loadout looks like in a minute. I probably used it, I think, about 6 or 7 times in total. But anyway, let's talk with the exterior. As I mentioned, it's a big, square, rectangular bag, and it's sort of echoed with like, the seams or the sewing there. A lot of like parallel straight lines, boxy. There's some rounded corners and a little bit of gentle shaping here, including that kind of famous Evergoods shoulder yoke curvature here. And obviously the shoulder straps are also curved, such as like Evergoods other backpacks here, but it is very much like a very like geometrically rectangular, symmetrical type bag. In terms of the exterior strapping, you've seen me use this a couple times here. There's these 2 dual external carry straps on one side, and there are 2 so that when you actually have the bag open, you can manipulate it, kind of open it and move it from place to place like this. And then there's another carry strap at the top, and then there's like this, Evergoods tends to leave these little loops in their carry system so that you can theoretically like clip a carabiner or something like that on there. Other than that, the outside of the bag is relatively unadorned except for the 2 pockets, which I'll talk about here. There is the Evergoods kind of logo Velcro patch here. I have stuck this on there just so you can kind of see that. I don't usually travel with this one on here because it tends to actually fall off because this is the bottom of the bag and you're kind of moving it back and forth here. If you look at the backpack straps, or the straps of the bag, very, very comfortable. So Evergoods has some of the best ergonomics on bags, I think, these days. Has this sort of yoke that forms a space between your shoulders and where the bag starts. That has 2 things. One, it curves around there really nicely and allows you to lock the bag. This bag rides very like tight to your body. All Evergoods bags ride tight to the body. It also lets the laptop in here go straight, even as the bag's back panel kind of curves to your back. So that way you're not putting pressure on the back, on the laptop, which is in here. And then the backpack straps themselves are very excellent, as is all of Evergoods stuff. Basic standard sternum strap with the laddering system. You can sometimes, these things can actually work their way out. I've had it happen on a few bags in the past. Evergoods bag, usually what happens is like this little thing gets caught in like this and then it just pulls out. I won't pull it out here. But I have no complaints with this, you know, shoulder system in general. Like there's no hip strap, which is okay. I never use them even on bags of this size. And the ergonomics of the bag do really help it kind of lock into your body and not move that much. That having been said, like it's a massive bag. And so if you put a ton of weight on here, you're going to feel it regardless of the strapping system. And definitely, obviously, like a hip belt, if properly sized, could help with that. But I like that they didn't include one in there because that would have been even fussier. There's these water bladder pass-through ports Evergoods puts in all of their bags, sort of like as a nod to their crossover appeal between outdoor and urban. I cannot imagine you would ever work with a water bladder in this thing. They actually would fit inside of the laptop compartment, but I don't see how you would ever bring this bag in a situation like that. The exterior pocketing situation is pretty simple, actually. There's a single one here which holds the laptop compartment, which we could talk about very briefly here. You just opens up here. There's a single kind of retaining strap that helps secure the laptop from falling out if you forget to leave this, if you leave this open by mistake. That's actually happened to me in their CPL24. I forgot to close that once and I took it out of the car and just my laptop just took a spill on the concrete and that was a terrible feeling. Laptop, this is actually the laptop that actually took the spill on the pavement. I don't think we're gonna be able to see it on there, but on the corner you can see. This is a 13-inch MacBook Pro. This will easily fit a 16-inch. Double layer of that excellent Evergoods stretch fabric, and there's lots of other space here for like documents or whatever. And then just put this strap back on there, close that up. And then the other single pocket, exterior pocket, is this one at the top in the yoke area. It's got a keeper in there, and it's just a simple, you know, kind of opening. You can put like phone, wallet, keys, etc. in there. I find that this bag does not have enough first order access to make it a sufficient one bag travel bag by itself. For the reason I just mentioned here, like if you look at, like this is very, very small. It's hard to fit everything inside of there. And so I usually want to, when I usually travel with this bag, I'll have actually a sling bag with me. So something like this is going to be the Air, I forgot the name of it, was this sling pack or sling bag. I like this one for a couple reasons, because one, it rides at the side like this with a little bit of fold around there, so it's out of the way, but it actually is still very easy to access it. I like that it's sort of flat, but at very high capacity in terms of like the things you can fit in there. And I like that the buckle is in the front here. So that means that when you're wearing this and then you wear the backpack over the top of this, the buckle doesn't press into your back. And this one I find pairs really, really well with this bag because it's also flat enough that you can even like slip it into the, as I mentioned, there's extra space in the laptop compartment. You can, in worst case, just slip it right in there, which you can't do with like a bigger, like bulkier sling bag. So this first order access pocket is not really that great in my opinion, but I'm glad they included it. It's better than nothing. You almost certainly need to travel with another sling bag. When you look at this bag overall, you could maybe fit it under the seat in front of you. I haven't been able to do that any comfortable way on a plane. It's going to go in the overhead bin for sure. These two handles make it easy to manipulate it into the overhead bin, but that means that you need another bag with you, like on the plane with all your earphones and phone and stuff like that. That's why I'm always like a sling guy when I'm bringing this bag here. Other than that, it's just the main compartment here. And the way that this bag opens up, this is the front of the bag here. There's a single big beefy rack and coil YKK zipper, and you can already see the main thing that everyone comments on this bag, and it's something that I found as well, is like these zippers are hard to open. There's this welt, that kind of double welt that kind of covers the zipper. It's not waterproof zipper, but I find this bag in general has very high water resistance. Obviously monsoon it's going to get wet, but there's some water resistance to the fabric, and then also to this welt kind of protecting the regular zipper. But that, and then the general shaping of the bag means, especially around the seams here at each corner, the zipper binds. And it's okay, like you never feel like you're gonna break it, but it definitely does introduce a lot of friction into the opening of the bag. And you can see also when you flip it open, you can see this zipper. Well, this one came here, but it often binds at this point and you have to kind of go like this. Again, you never feel like you're going to break the bag simply because of how beefy all the materials are, but it is something that you notice in your interactions with this bag. Now, I'll flip this around so you can see here in maybe the normal orientation, excuse me. This is the bottom of the bag. This is the top of the bag. And the first thing you notice is all of the capacity or compartment of the bag is on one side, and then the other one is sort of like this little admin panel here. Let's talk about the admin panel first. You've got these 3 pockets here, really strong mesh with its own dimension, so you could fit quite a bit of stuff in here. And then you have one that's a little bit more opaque, like security panel. I don't have anything inside of here. And here I have like a passport and a pen. And to be clear, like if I were traveling, this passport would actually be in my sling and obviously wouldn't be in here because it's almost impossible to get into this pocket with any kind of ease. You basically have to set this bag down, open it up, and then like get in there, which you don't want to do, obviously, anywhere en route. And then this big one I used for like, things like my documents, masks, batteries, notebooks, maybe a toothpaste or toothbrush or something like that. I like that it kind of is flat, but it has dimensions, so it's easy to get a bunch of this stuff in there and not have to worry about it, get it out of the way. This one I don't usually use for anything. While we're in this side here, you can see something that I think is really nice. Like this, I won't take it out, but this houses like a removable metal stay, which obviously you shouldn't remove. And there's another one on this side as well, is what gives stiffness when you're manipulating the bag from each side like this, right? I love that. Like it prevents it from collapsing and it really makes this like a big portable box, which is great for working in and out of. Let's look at this side. Before we get into the main compartment, there's one more pocket here on the side. There's an ID case here and then a little flat zipper pocket here. Theoretically, you can put like things like, I don't know, like a passport or something where you need to get access to, but you want to be more secure. And then the idea is like when you close up the bag, if you close up the zippers to here, you can kind of unzip it and then access this security pocket here. I have never used this pocket in travel because I just find it too fussy. And I just use the sling, as I mentioned. So here's what I think is one of the greatest parts of this bag is this bucket style. And I mentioned that it has this great compressibility. So these are kind of wings, fabric wings that open up like there's a little bit of stretch in there, gusseting in there, and it just forms this big bucket. And you can throw stuff in there, ton of stuff, and then when you're ready to go, you clip these 2 straps in here like this, and then just crank it, and it compresses it on all sides. And then when you drop this on top, and you drop it closed, it just is so easy. I mean, except for the zipper binding, it's so easy to just get this thing kind of wrapped all around it because it's sort of compressed into this half of the bag. And what I like about that, one, is besides the ease of it and the fact that you can really pack in a bunch of stuff into here, far more than you would expect. You can see it sort of juts out, but then you compress it in. And it compresses on all sides, so it kind of, really squishes that load in there nice and tight, is it doesn't put strain on these external zippers. And that's a really important thing because I think even though these are really big, beefy number 10 rack and coil type zippers, if you're any kind of clamshell bag, certainly like a big 1-bag travel bag, like you're going to, if you break the zipper, you're out of luck. So I like that this really takes all that kind of pressure off of the zippers. And if you look at like the Arc'teryx, I think like the rolling duffel, like the 80 or 60 or 80 or whatever they are, they have a similar kind of internal compression system that really like cinches all the weight into one compartment, one half of the compartment. So you can overload a bag without putting pressure on the external zippers when you zip up the bag like that. But in terms of like a 1-bag travel bag, I've never seen one that's designed like this with this big bucket and compression, and I love it. I think it's great. I have this bag loaded out with far more gear than I would normally ever carry on an urban kind of trip, but to kind of show the capacity of this bag. And one of the greatest strengths is like you can just, you have 2 areas to work in and out of. And that's super great. You drop this on the bed or on the floor at your destination and you can kind of just, drop stuff in and out. And I think that is really a wonderful aspect. And when you're ready to go, just throw everything in there, cinch it shut, and go. I won't bore you too much with the actual details of this. This is like this is a Peak Design travel tripod. I would almost never bring something like this, but if I were going somewhere and I wanted to use like some astrophotography or something like that, I would need to bring a tripod. I generally don't bring a heavier tripod, even though it obviously would be better. This is a Peak Design 3-liter travel sling, but this one's really packed out more than usual. I've got like a full frame Sony A7R4 in there. I've got the 24 G Master 24 1.4. That would be like an astrophotography lens. And then I have like the G24 to 105. That would be like a general purpose, like do everything kind of lens. Like that is, and this is a full frame heavy solution, which along with this tripod is far more kilograms and size of camera than I would usually bring on a trip, but you can do it with this kind of capacity. And then inside of here, we've got like just a hair iron, because you know you got to look good. Bellroy dop kit, which I've talked about a little bit in other videos, just one of the best dop kits on the market today. Bellroy tech kit with the full, you know, like complement of cables and chargers and stuff. Remember, we got our laptop on the back there. Air shoe pouch. We've got like some running shoes in there. We got our exercise clothes or whatnot. It goes in there. And then my air packing cube with all the clothes and stuff. And then finally at the bottom, we have the Tortuga day pack. As I mentioned, you got to really bring another pack with you on a bag like this. Otherwise, like, you know, I don't know, you just need something. This one just folds flat at the bottom. And you can see it's really easy to just load stuff in and out in there. There's tons of capacity. And I like that about this bag, is how easy it is to pack in and out of, how much capacity it has, and just in general, like the kind of high degree of compressibility. You throw all this stuff in there, right? And this is a ton of stuff. And then, well, actually, maybe I should put this in like this, right? And then with a very minimal amount of fuss, I would say, compared to like the usual kind of packing games you're doing with larger or with other kind of traveling backpacks, you can just kind of close this shut like this, and then you're ready to go. And that's great. Now, that having been said, I think that another use case, as I mentioned, this is crossover type travel. So cases where you're doing both urban and kind of doing outdoorsy type travel. And I want to show very briefly how I might realistically pack out this bag for something like that. So the idea being like you're doing a little bit of urban stuff, but also some outdoorsy stuff. First thing you need is a proper bag. I'm gonna pick something like this Millet Trilogy 30-liter Dyneema bag that just fits in the bottom. This is a proper bag. You can do a overnight hike with this, no problem. Something like the Big Agnes Scout Carbon or whatever. You're gonna need some trekking poles with this, because this one requires trekking poles to go with. So I'll throw in some trekking poles, and then a sleeping bag, Sea to Summits Spark, sleeping pad, Thermarest Neo Air Uberlight, some clothes for that, your toiletry kit. You're obviously gonna need a backpack, since remember we're doing crossover travel here. So we'll leave the backpack here for a second. I'll talk about this one here in a moment. And then like a layer, this is gonna be the Zeta AR, and then maybe like a first aid kit in here as well. And then you've got like just your general purpose like clothing, right? So you take your packing pouch there, and then this is the Mystery Ranch in and out. So this is actually like a packable day pack. It's a little bit more outdoorsy oriented. You can actually do crossover travel with this as well. Throw it in here, and then it's just really, you know, so again, we've got stuff for urban, you know, city use with that Zeta AR as well, do double duty. And then you've got everything you need basically to do an overnight hike with this bag as well. An overnight, including a tent. Now, a quick word here is like, obviously there's a couple things that aren't in here, like water. I usually buy like a couple 1-liter smart water bottles at the destination, so I don't bring those on a plane with me. And then also you can't bring hiking poles or tents with poles or stakes on a plane. So the Scout AR, the Big Agnes Scout doesn't have poles, but it does still require stakes. So either, and then it requires hiking poles, which I have in here. So if you're planning to bring this on a plane as your carry-on, which is obviously one of the attractions, just to be really upfront here, you're going to need to do something like this, which is like the big Nemo Go-Go Elite, which is sort of got an air beam. It's almost like a bivvy. Still requires stakes, but you can just use sticks at the destination. Then you can dump the hiking poles, and you can dump the, you don't have to worry about the stakes, and you could actually do, and I have done, one bag air travel crossover with all the stuff you need to camp overnight. And then finally, you know, you might want to take something like an insulation, well, you need to take an insulation layer almost no matter where you're going, because you never know how cold it'll get. Throw something like that in there, and then you know, just really zip this bag shut like this, and then next thing you know, oops, sorry, excuse me, and then you've got everything that you need for both an urban trip, I guess, and also like an overnight camping, hiking trip. And that's like a use case where this bag really, really excels. Just tons of capacity in one kind of like very tight, compact package. Now, if you're in a market for something like this, and when I say something like this, I really mean big black travel bags, because that's what this one squarely is. There are some other options you might want to consider, and I will show them to you now. So first and foremost, the Peak Design Travel Bag, 40 liters. This is one of the modern, like kind of, you know, most famous modern big black travel bags. It is also a gigantic big bucket one. It has a lot more accessories, like they have like travel cubes and packing cubes and stuff like that will kind of fit in here. You know, laptop container or whatever. I personally find that this one is overbuilt for what it is, and I don't find that the backpack straps, which can kind of fold away with this hip belt or whatever, are actually that comfortable. I only used this a few times. I didn't particularly like it because of that. Still, it is boxy, and it has an expansion gusset in here that actually lets it, you know, expand the capacity. Theoretically, you can actually collapse it down like this. There's like some snaps on the inside, and the bag's supposed to kind of collapse down, and you're supposed to be able to use this as a daily bag. I find it's just way too big to use as a daily bag. So generally speaking, if I were to choose between, you know, if I were to compare these two bags, they're almost exactly the same size when you've got this, the Peak expanded out. I find that I just prefer the Evergoods one. It can carry far more. That compression is really good. The materials feel better, more robust. Like this has very nice high-tech materials. They're not bad at all. But this, like Evergoods just uses these really straightforward, strong, like simple nylon materials that are just, they're bomber, right? And this one is not bad. It's just a little bit more fiddly. They got like the AquaGuard zippers, which actually they're not AquaGuard zippers. They are Peak's own waterproof type zippers. But I just find these are just a little bit less rippable and robust. Some advantages, this one has like more workability, far more organization, far more first order access all over the bag, water bottles, stuff like that. So a lot of people do like this one. I personally prefer this one to that one for most cases if I'm hauling this much gear. If you're hauling a bunch of camera gear, you could do with the camera cubes and stuff in here that is obviously a little bit more, I guess, like safe, I guess, for some of your camera gear. But I find that if I'm bringing that much camera gear, then I have to bring another bag with it, because the Peak doesn't actually do a great job of containing both camera gear and other stuff. Another big black travel bag that kind of is the same size. This is the Air Travel Pack 2. It is a big black travel bag that just flips open and lets you toss a bunch of stuff in there. Single big capacity, but also another secondary one on the front here. Peak has, or sorry, Air Design has tons more organization going on. That's kind of one of their, I guess, like hallmarks. I find this bag, so this bag actually, even though technically it's sort of the same size, they're all 40 liters. So I find that this bag actually rides or wears a bit smaller than the other bags, even though they're technically all the same size. So if I were to take the Peak bag and this one, they are technically the same size just about, because they're all 40 liters and there's only so much you can do with a 40-liter box. But I just find that this one, maybe because of the materials and the fact that it has less like structure than the Peak, tends to ride a little bit smaller, and then you're going to have the same situation when you compare it to the Evergoods here. It just rides like it just seems like a smaller bag when you're wearing it. It has these compression straps that also help to that. I find this bag a lot more fiddly than the Evergoods one. There's a lot of like, you're always zipping and unzipping and where did I put this and where did I put that. I think that it has, some of the advantages. It has a water bottle, external water bottle, much more organization. It's better sort of first order access here at the top, and lots of places, your laptop, separate laptop container, etc. I think that this is a very useful bag for one bag travel, and I'll do a full review on it later. It's definitely worth looking at as a different philosophy to the Evergoods. It doesn't carry as much as this one in the same way as the Peak design does not as well. And then one last kind of cut here. We have the Air capsule pack. This one's a 35 liter. There's also a larger 40 or 45 liter one. And this is interesting because it's a kind of interesting hybrid of the philosophy between like a big bucket hauler and then like the kind of like 2 or 3, compartment, one bag, big black travel bags like the Peak and the Air and the Go Rock before it. This one has a big bucket. Again, this is the 35 liter one that lets you just really just dump a bunch of stuff in here. There's not that same compression that you have in here. So besides the fact that this bag, which is again 35, there's a larger one, is physically smaller than this bag, it also just can't compress in as much stuff. But I found it very interesting in that it's also in a way kind of a hauler, and you can see that there also similarly a lot of stiffness around the zipper, much like this one here. I don't know if that's a great thing or not. But it actually does have full backpack straps. This one is a little bit more like fiddly in that they like can hide away, but then these things can kind of flip in here or whatever and stuff. But the idea is you can obviously haul it as a backpack. It has pretty comfortable straps actually with these load lifters, although again, fussier than just a simple like well execution of the Evergoods. Back, compartment, external compartment for the computer, and then a bit more first order access on this one versus the Evergoods, like this big organizer pouch at the top that you can dump stuff in and out of, which I found very useful, and then a second kind of like, phone or whatever, passport pocket in there. Again, this one, because you can, especially if you get the larger one, which I did not, because again, I feel like that's just too much capacity for me. You can dump a bunch of stuff in here, zip it up, and then more or less go, and it has the same big boxy kind of construction. Air also has really solid materials, not as strong as obviously the Evergoods, but still really solid stuff. And that's it. So as I said, this is what I consider one of the best big black travel bags on the market today, albeit for a very specialized kind of hauler type use case where you're bringing a ton of stuff from point A to point B. You want to do so comfortably, but you also don't need a ton of in and out access along the way. If that sounds like that's a travel style you're interested in, I would strongly urge you to check out this bag. And if you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get back to you. And if there's any other bags you'd like me to review, please drop those in the comments as well.